I was looking for our marriage certificate in my wife's desk drawer when I found the bundle of letters tied with a red ribbon. Catherine had asked me to find the document for a mortgage refinancing meeting, and she'd said to check her home office desk where she kept all our important papers. The letters were hidden at the very back of the bottom drawer, underneath a stack of old tax returns. They looked like love letters. Expensive cream-colored paper, elegant handwriting, tied with silk ribbon like something from a romantic movie. My first thought was that Catherine had saved the love letters I'd written her during our courtship 8 years ago. It would be just like her to keep them as romantic mementos hidden away like precious treasures. But when I pulled one letter from the bundle, I saw it wasn't addressed to Catherine Martinez. It was addressed to Catherine Chen. Catherine had been Catherine Chen before we married. She'd taken my last name when we got married, become Catherine Martinez. But these letters were dated from last month. Why would someone be writing to my wife using her maiden name? I opened the first letter with trembling hands. "My dearest Catherine," it began. 3 weeks since our last evening together feels like an eternity. I keep replaying every moment. The way you laughed at dinner. The way you looked at me when we walked along the pier. The way you felt in my arms when we danced to that old song. This wasn't a letter I had written. I'd never taken Catherine dancing on any pier. We hadn't been out to dinner alone in months. My heart started pounding as I continued reading. I know this situation is complicated. I know you're still legally married to him while you figure out how to move forward. But Catherine, what we have is real. What we have is worth fighting for. I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. Still legally married to him. Him. Me. I grabbed another letter from the bundle, this one dated 2 weeks ago. Catherine, I understand your hesitation about telling him the truth about us. I understand that 8 years of marriage isn't something you can just walk away from without careful consideration. But darling, life is short. We're not getting any younger. How much time do we want to waste pretending to be people we're not? I rifled through the bundle. There were at least 20 letters dating back over 4 months, all addressed to Catherine Chen, all from someone who was clearly having an affair with my wife. The signature on each letter was the same. All my love, Robert. Robert. I didn't know any Robert. Catherine had never mentioned a Robert. I kept reading, each letter more intimate than the last. Details about romantic dinners at restaurants I'd never been to. References to weekend getaways I knew nothing about. Mentions of hotels, of private moments, of a future they were planning together. Catherine, when you told me about your marriage, about how you and Michael have grown apart, about how you feel like strangers living in the same house, my heart broke for you. You deserve so much more than a relationship where you're going through the motions. Michael, he was writing about me, about how Catherine had described our marriage to him. Strangers living in the same house. Is that really how she saw us? I thought about our relationship lately. We had grown more distant over the past year. Catherine had seemed preoccupied, less interested in spending time together. I'd attributed it to work stress, to the natural ebb and flow of long-term relationships. Now I realized she'd been pulling away because she was falling in love with someone else. One letter, dated 3 weeks ago, contained details that made me physically sick. Catherine, our afternoon at the Riverside Inn was perfect. When you said you hadn't felt that alive in years, when you told me you'd forgotten what it was like to feel truly desired, I knew we were meant to be together. You're not meant to live half a life with someone who doesn't see how extraordinary you are. The Riverside Inn. 3 weeks ago, Catherine had said she was going to a day-long conference for work. She'd left early in the morning and come home late, seeming energized and happy in a way I hadn't seen in months. She hadn't been at a conference. She'd been at a romantic hotel with Robert. I found the marriage certificate I'd originally been looking for and left Catherine's office. But I took the letters with me. I needed to understand the full scope of what had been happening behind my back. In our bedroom, I spread the letters out chronologically and read through the entire relationship. It was like reading a romance novel, except the woman being romanced was my wife. The first letter, dated 4 months ago, was more cautious, more uncertain. Catherine, I hope it's not inappropriate for me to write to you like this. Our conversation at the gallery opening last week has stayed with me. When you mentioned feeling unfulfilled, feeling like you were living someone else's idea of what your life should be. I recognized something in your eyes, a longing for something more authentic, more passionate. A gallery opening. 4 months ago, Catherine had started attending more cultural events, saying she wanted to expand her horizons, meet new people, experience art and culture. I'd been supportive, happy that she was developing new interests. I hadn't realized she was developing new relationships. The letters progressed from friendship to romance to what was clearly a full-blown affair. By the second month, Robert was writing, "Catherine, last night changed everything for me. I know you're scared about what this means, about where it leads, but I've never been more certain of anything. You belong with someone who sees your intelligence, your creativity, your passionate spirit, someone who doesn't take you for granted. Someone who doesn't take you for granted. Another indictment of me, of our marriage." By the third month, they were making plans. "Catherine, I know you need time to figure out how to handle your marriage. I'm not pressuring you to make any decisions before you're ready, but I want you to know that I'm serious about us. I'm serious about building a real life together." The most recent letter, dated just 2 weeks ago, contained information that felt like a knife to the chest. "My darling Catherine, I understand your concerns about timing, but the lease on the house is available now. It's perfect for us. 3 bedrooms, garden, quiet neighborhood. The landlord needs an answer by next Friday. I know it's sudden, but perhaps this is the universe telling us it's time to stop waiting and start living." A house. They were planning to move in together. I heard Catherine's car in the driveway and quickly put the letters back in their bundle. She came through the front door looking relaxed and happy, humming softly to herself. "Did you find the marriage certificate?" she asked, giving me a quick kiss on the cheek. "I found it." I held up the document. "Hey, Catherine, we need to talk." Something in my tone made her freeze. "About what?" I pulled out the bundle of love letters. "About Robert." The color drained from Catherine's face completely. She sat down heavily on our couch, staring at the letters like they were evidence of a crime. "How did you find those?" "They were in your desk drawer, hidden under the tax returns." "You went through my private papers. You asked me to find our marriage certificate. Your private papers were mixed in with our joint documents." Catherine was quiet for a long time, probably calculating how much I knew, how much she could still hide. "How long?" I asked. 4 months. "Are you in love with him?" "Yes." "Are you planning to leave me for him?" She nodded, tears starting to stream down her face. "Yes." "The house he mentioned in his letter. Were you planning to move in with him?" "We're supposed to give the landlord an answer by Friday." "This Friday?" "In 3 days." "Yes." I looked at my wife of 8 years, this woman I'd thought I knew completely, and realized I was staring at a stranger. "When were you going to tell me?" "This weekend." "I was going to tell you this weekend, after you'd already committed to the house. I wanted to make sure I had somewhere to go before I had the conversation." "How did you meet him?" "At the Morrison Gallery opening in April. He's an art dealer, recently divorced. We started talking about art, about life, about feeling stuck in routines that didn't fit us anymore. And you decided to have an affair." "I decided to see what it would feel like to be with someone who was genuinely interested in me as a person, not just as a wife and household manager." The accusation stung because there was truth in it. I had gotten comfortable in our marriage, had started taking Catherine for granted, treating her more like a roommate than a romantic partner. "Catherine, even if our marriage had problems, that didn't give you the right to cheat." "I know. You're right. I handled this badly. You've been lying to me for 4 months. Every conference, every work event, every girls' night out. How many of those were really dates with Robert?" "Most of them. The Riverside Inn 3 weeks ago. Your work conference was actually a day with Robert. We talked about our future, about what we wanted from life. And you decided you wanted him instead of me." "Michael, I decided I wanted to feel alive again. I decided I wanted to be with someone who was excited about me, who wanted to know my thoughts and dreams, who made an effort to create romantic moments." I could have made an effort if you told me there was a problem. I tried telling you. Remember when I suggested we take dance lessons? You said you were too busy. When I wanted to go to that wine tasting, you said it was a waste of money. When I mentioned feeling disconnected, you suggested we watch a movie together. I did remember those conversations, but I'd thought I was being practical, responsible. I hadn't realized Catherine interpreted my responses as dismissive. So instead of fighting for our marriage, you started a new relationship. I started discovering who I really was when I wasn't trying to be the perfect wife. Is that what you've been doing for 8 years? Trying to be the perfect wife? I've been trying to be the wife I thought you wanted. Quiet, supportive, content with domestic life. But that's not who I am, Michael. I'm someone who wants adventure, passion, intellectual stimulation. Robert gives you those things. Robert sees those things in me. Robert encourages those parts of my personality instead of trying to manage them. I thought about the letters, about the way Robert wrote to Catherine. He did see her differently than I did, wrote about qualities and dreams I'd either forgotten about or never fully appreciated. What happens now? Now I pack my things and move to the house with Robert. Just like that. 8 years of marriage, and you're walking away without even trying to fix what's broken? Michael, what's broken isn't our marriage. What's broken is that we're fundamentally incompatible people who tried to make it work because we loved each other. We do love each other. We love the idea of each other. But we don't love who we actually are. You love the Catherine who's content to stay home and manage household logistics. I love the Michael who's stable and reliable and financially responsible. But those aren't our whole selves. Catherine was right, and that made it worse. We had fallen in love with compatible parts of each other while ignoring or minimizing the parts that didn't fit. The letters, I said. Why did you keep them? Because they're the most romantic thing anyone has ever written to me. Because when I read them, I remember what it feels like to be truly seen and appreciated. I used to write you letters. You used to write me practical notes about schedules and grocery lists. Robert writes to me about my thoughts, my dreams, my inner life. She was right about that too. My communication with Catherine had become functional rather than romantic over the years. Are you going to marry him? Someday maybe. But first I need to figure out who I am when I'm not defining myself as someone's wife. Catherine moved out that weekend. She took her personal belongings, her books, her art supplies that had been gathering dust in the closet. She left behind the furniture, the kitchen items, all the domestic artifacts of our shared life. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Catherine and Robert did move into the house he'd mentioned in his letters. From what I heard through mutual friends, they traveled frequently, attended cultural events, lived the kind of adventurous life Catherine had been craving. I kept the love letters, not out of masochism, but out of fascination with how completely they revealed the problems in my marriage that I'd been blind to. Reading Robert's letters to Catherine was like reading a manual for how to love someone fully, romantically, with attention to their inner life rather than just their practical contributions to a shared household. Catherine, one letter had said, when you told me about your dream of taking a pottery class, I didn't hear an impractical hobby. I heard someone yearning to create beauty with her hands. When you mentioned wanting to travel to Morocco, I didn't hear an expensive vacation idea. I heard someone with wanderlust and curiosity about other cultures. I realized that when Catherine had mentioned pottery classes and Morocco trips to me, I had heard impractical hobbies and expensive vacation ideas. I'd responded with practical concerns instead of romantic possibilities. A year after the divorce, I started dating again. Jennifer was different from Catherine. More independent, more direct about her needs and expectations. But being with her taught me lessons I'd learned from reading Robert's letters to my ex-wife. I learned to ask about dreams and fears, not just schedules and plans. I learned to respond to romantic ideas with enthusiasm rather than practical concerns. I learned to write actual love letters, not just functional notes. The love letters I found in Catherine's desk weren't addressed to me, but they taught me more about love than 8 years of marriage had. They showed me what I'd been missing, what Catherine had been craving, what I could offer someone in the future. Catherine and Robert got married 2 years after my divorce was final. I heard they had a small ceremony in Morocco, fulfilling one of the dreams she'd mentioned to both of us. I sent them a wedding gift, a set of beautiful pottery bowls from a local artist. Catherine sent a thank you note, the first communication we'd had since the divorce papers were signed. "Michael," she wrote, "thank you for the beautiful gift and thank you for letting me go. I hope you find someone who appreciates the wonderful man you are, and I hope you find the happiness you deserve." It was the kind of note I should have been writing to her for 8 years. Personal, thoughtful, focused on feelings rather than logistics. The love letters that destroyed my marriage also taught me how to love better in the future. Sometimes the most painful discoveries are also the most educational ones. I never wrote love letters to Catherine, but reading the ones Robert wrote to her showed me what I'd been missing all along. Real love letters aren't just about romance. They're about seeing and appreciating the whole person, not just the parts that fit comfortably into your life plan. The letters weren't addressed to me, but the lessons they contained were meant for me all along.